It's pretty bad. Phil Polar Scribe asks, for those of us who haven't played Half-Life 1, what is the Zen stuff you talk about that sort of makes that part unfun?
So, minor spoilers if you care about the story of this game, which you shouldn't really, because there's not that much story to this game. But
which is part of why it holds up, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, like, the story that is here is very simple and easy to grasp without having to...
it's all already happened for the most part.
Yeah,
right.
The vast majority of the story is that beginning stuff. There's a couple more things, but basically, by the end of the game, you end up going to... So there's this crazy alien monsters warping in from somewhere. You end up going through a portal that leads you to Zen, which is the planet they are warping in from. Oh, God. Oh, I almost died there. Yeah, so you end up warping into Zen, and the way that Zen works is it's pretty much... So, like, you see what I just did there? That little, like, first-person platforming puzzle?
Mm-hmm.
Zen is, like, almost all that.
Mm-hmm.
And the enemies that you are fighting are much more powerful and not very fun to fight.
Right. And that's, like, after a lot of really fun, interesting fighting.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so they just do a good job of, like, you know, you're fighting through Black Mesa, which is like a science lab, a nondescript science lab hidden in the desert somewhere. But they do a really good job of making Black Mesa into an interesting place,
right.
with interesting
definitely
puzzles to
feels
solve.
like a place.
Yeah,
you know, and it does feel like there are puzzles, but the puzzles don't feel. They don't feel. I hate the fucking term gamey, but it is 4 a.m. They don't feel manufactured. They don't feel like they are. I'm going to go from being really vague in what I'm trying to say to being way too specific. Kant has this idea that one of the ways that we recognize art and value art is that it feels like there's a purpose even though there isn't a defined one. That even like it feels like this thing has meaning in our lives even though it's just paint on a page.
Sure.
And I think the puzzles in Half-Life in Black Mesa feel as if they occurred naturally and have meaning even though we know there's an artist's hand behind it. You know, and I think that's really great. Versus in Zen, when I played Zen, it felt like a motherfucking video game. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like I was in a place anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And it's not just the puzzles too. Like all of the combat stuff in Black Mesa is just a lot more interesting.
Yeah,
I feel like, anyways.
Yeah.
The combat,
I like fighting dudes.
The combat stuff in Zen you just end up getting put into a lot more situations where you're like, oh yeah, this is like a creature that you can't actually beat. You just need to like figure out a way past him. But there are a few things like that in Black Mesa, but they're usually just more fun, more approachable. I don't know. We'll get there tonight. Don't worry about it. Maybe not tonight. Maybe not ever.
Maybe not tonight. Yeah.
Maybe I'll get back to Zen again and then give up.
Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but soon for the rest of your life.
Raising a child is a lot like Half-Life.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I told Janessa when I was trying to convince her to have a baby with me. I said, listen, I've played Half-Life this many times. I think I can raise a kid.
I think I know what to do with head crabs. Come on.
Oh.
I'm basically already half done with the game already at this point, so...
Right, this is, yeah. It's true. And with being
So actually, this is interesting. Like, I've been watching the Summer Games Done Quick, which has been incredible. And
it's over now, right? That's wrapped?
I think today was the last day. They're probably still doing, like, post-stream stuff. They usually do a bunch of bonus stuff, but I highly recommend anybody go back and check that out. But I was thinking about it. I was thinking about any games that I would speedrun. I think this is the only game I could even imagine.
Yeah.
Because I've already played it so many times, and because it's one of the only games that I, for whatever reason, because of that, you know, nostalgia I feel for it, I don't ever get sick of playing this game.
Right.
So it's like one of the only games that I could even consider, like, seeing myself speedrun one day.
That is the most vital part of choosing a game to speedrun is have you...
Yeah, so you do a little bit of speedrunning, right?
I do a little bit, mostly just VV.
Yeah.
But and the reason why that's the game that I speedrun is because I've beaten it dozens and dozens of times, and I've never gotten tired of it.
Yeah.
And you know, like I feel like a lot of people decide, oh, I want to get into speedruns, and they just pick something they think is cool, but they don't really have any kind of emotional attachment to, and then you get burnt out on it, and you don't want to do it anymore. Phil, you just died.
I know. Don't worry about it. Working as intended.
So if you do want to speedrun, pick a game that you've beaten a few times and that is just really close to your heart, and figure out the most efficient way to get through it.
Yeah.
And of course, some games
Apparently
are
not doing this right.
Yeah, Phil, you died again.
Don't worry about it.
A third time.
Some games are more.
Jeez.
Phil, you died again.
Don't worry about it.
Some games are better for speedruns than others.
Save the scientist's life.
Nice.
But sometimes the most impressive, interesting speedruns are the ones for games that don't seem like they would be conducive to a speedrun.
Right.
Like the Super Mario 64 speedruns are always incredible.
Mm-hmm. It looks like a completely different game,
Yeah, because they're not playing the same game.
There's a really great article that I would recommend if you guys haven't seen it by Christian Nutt at Gama Sutra. He wrote an article actually earlier this year when he saw Awesome Games Done Quick, which was also my first real introduction to the speedrunning community. Man, the guys who put on Awesome Games Done Quick and Summer Games Done Quick, they're just so incredible. But he wrote a really interesting article about where he specifically talks about, first off, watching somebody do a speedrun of Super Mario 3D Land. That was really good at Awesome Games Done Quick. And then watching Sig Lemick, who's the guy who always does the Mario 64 speedruns, watching him do a Mario 64 speedrun, how it's like, he said like he felt like it taught him a lot about the difference between what games were like then compared to what games are like now. Sort of, as you're saying, like, because Mario 64 being speedrun is like a completely different game. It is like, it's just he's breaking the game and he's playing it in ways that it was not intended to be played.
Right.
Whereas with modern games, a lot of times it's much more like there is no way, like the games have gotten to the point where there is no way to just break them like that.
Right.
And it's more about just like finding the fastest through line.
Right. That's really interesting.
But to me, that's what makes watching somebody play like speedrun Mario 64 or older games like that so interesting. Is because like they're doing like insane shit that you're like, Nintendo clearly never even
saw, like, yeah.
Never would have intended for this. Never even thought about it.
Right. This stuff is in there because someone probably found it during testing, and someone else said, yeah, it's not worth getting rid of this. It's not worth, like, this exploit isn't worth, fixing because no one else is going to ever find this because it's so ridiculous to figure out how to do. Like, that stuff is bananas. Same thing with the Ocarina of Time stuff.
Yeah, is Ocarina of Time the one where there's a certain boss, and if you die right as you kill it, you'll go through the world or something, and that lets you skip a chunk?
Yep.
Ocarina of Time, whoops, I died. Ocarina of Time, you can technically finish in like, what is it now, like 23 minutes? Which is that's like a 40-hour game that they can finish in 23 minutes because they found like a crazy bug that lets you just skip everything.
Right. One that isn't I guess it's an exploit, but I wouldn't say it's a bug that always blows me away. Is Morrowind? Have you seen that? The 4 minutes and 19 seconds.
Oh yeah, I have seen that. That's super crazy.
Which is insane. It's because there's a guy early on who you could find who falls from the sky, and the bit is like, oh, he's a wizard who has a failed like scroll of flying, basically. Because back during in Morrowind, Elder Scrolls games included levitation spells.
Yep.
Because they were rad and ridiculous. It's one of the reasons I like Morrowind a lot is the magic is way more ridiculous. But using that and then like a couple like stamina potions and some other shit, you can jump to the volcano where you need to get like one of the 2 items you need to beat the final boss. And like it's just like unbelievable world crazy jumping shit. Like, you literally are jumping across the world without using any fast travel or anything like that. And again, whoever figured that out for the first time was pretty smart.
See, this is shit. This is the kind of shit I love Half-Life 4. Is like, you walk in here, you pick up the shotgun, and then you walk over here, and immediately this guy's about to get attacked. And you can let him die if you want, but if you use that shotgun and quickly save him, then he lets you in, and you get a ton of extra shit. That's just like such a smart little design thing that like shooters before this never did anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, but does this game let you cut up a dude's face like Soldier of Fortune?
Listen, games are going to go in one of two directions. You have to understand. Either they're going to get really interesting in design, or they're going to be all about cutting up dude faces. So, 50-50 shot. You're one of those two people are going to make the good game, and Soldier of Fortune guys just lucked out. That's all it was.
Sad.
I knew people who were way into Soldier of Fortune back in the day, and they were the worst people.
I know people who probably still are.
How do they feel about Deadpool?
Aww.
I don't mean the game, I mean the character, but I also mean the game.
Sorry, not sorry.
I've heard the game is okay, and that's not fair.
That's not what I've heard at all.
I've heard people
Polygon's
say,
reviewer liked it.
Yeah. Was it Danielle?
It was Danielle.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's a very discerning reviewer. Sometimes.
I think it's one of those things where you have to... It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's a Deadpool game. So...
You let that sound like a good shot. Good job.
Austin just made me super bummed that I haven't been able to get Morrowind to work in Windows either.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Really?
It crashes on launch.
What
the launcher
Windows
up,
are you using?
Windows 7.
You'd think there has to be like people who figured that shit out by now.
Yeah, I've been looking, and the answers that they offer have not helped. So, yeah, kind of bummed. Because Skyrim was my first Elder Scrolls game, again, because of the whole Mac thing. I do most of my gaming on computer, specifically, not on console, so...
For me, Morrowind is... Oh no, whoops, sorry about that, guys. Morrowind is where it goes, gets hard to go back to.
Did you play it back then, or did you?
I did play it back then, but I even back then it was a little overwhelming for me. So maybe that's it.
It was the first time that it was the first real computer RPG, Western computer RPG, that I made the effort to get over the ridiculous hump of trying to learn. And so, putting in all that effort, I think has made it one of the things I can go back to, but it's also ugly as sin, and and I don't just mean that graphically, I also mean that in terms of interface, in terms of understanding, the systems are also really probably overcomplicated.
God, even going back to Oblivion is it looks so bad, and it's by game standards, I guess it's old, but it's not really that old.
It looked so good when it came out.
It was unbelievable.
Now, to me, it looks gross because so much of it is done, the metal textures and stuff are done through, bump mapping and normal mapping instead of actual texturing.
Right.
Which has a very dated look.
But bump mapping was the shit back then.
Yeah,
I remember
that was the thing.
What was it, Turok 2 on the N64, and it was the first game that had bump mapping. And
that was the thing, bump mapping was, that was the cool thing.
Yeah.
So you want to take advantage of that, and the real thing is that the ideal is a combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gives you nice shit now, because it allows the lighting to react to stuff, but also doesn't look like shit. So
the thing that ends up being frustrating about, I think Morrowind especially, but even Oblivion to some degree, is that I really like Skyrim. I really enjoy it, and I've spent a lot of time with it, and have it installed right now. I really want to get back to it this week.
You're not going to pull a Dylan here and talk about how Bethesda games are all terrible.
No, not at all. I really love Bethesda games. The thing that I really liked about Morrowind, or again, a little bit with Oblivion too, those are games that have rough edges that come from wanting to do really weird things, like having a completely customizable spell system, where you could go in and design a spell, and it would have a certain spell cost, and you could assign different spell effects and blah blah blah. Really, just a weird, unique system that breaks the game in a lot of ways that I don't think Bethesda is willing to do anymore, because they have rounded off a lot of those sharp edges, and I get why, and I don't think that that's a bad choice or something, but I really would love to see. I'd really love to see. I'm sure there are some really interesting systems that got cut from Skyrim because they were a little too opaque or a little too, a little too unfriendly. And I totally have room in my heart for a slightly unfriendly game.
Yeah.
Maybe not one as unfriendly as Morrowind was, but
And they
one
also
in
kind of have the luxury of saying that they don't have to do everything because there's
Right.
modders that are gonna, they'll say, no, I liked this thing from Oblivion, so now I'm gonna make it like that in Skyrim too. And
totally.
But
Yeah,
what you're talking about, that's
Skyrim.
what you're talking about is the reason that European RPGs exist now, right?
Right. Totally.
Like Western, like I guess North American specifically RPGs are getting more and more polished. But we've still got those Euro RPGs to be weird and try weird, interesting things.
Totally. Right. Like I don't go back to. Weirdly, I don't go back. I haven't replayed Human Revolution, Deus Ex Human Revolution, despite having really liked it. What I keep going back to play is High Divine Cybermancy,
Is that
which
actually
is a really,
any good? For real?
I really like it, but it's busted and weird and janky. But like we've met, like the sort of shit I like. But it has a certain character to it that is. Earlier tonight, I said, man, I really like video games. I love figuring out video games. We started this thing, we didn't understand how it worked, and then we spent some time, and then we figured it out. And I has a lot of those moments every time I go back to playing it, whereas I think I figured out Deus Ex Human Revolution. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I have already... all of that part of the joy has already come out of it, and so I'm still getting the aesthetic joy of Deus Ex Human Revolution. I still like the way that game looks, and I like fucking robot arms and... cyber eyes, obviously. I'm Austin. But the thing I keep going back to I for is that experience of figuring out how these systems work together in an interesting way. And that's why I get to keep coming back to
Speaking
it.
of
If it ran
systems,
better, I'd run it. Or stream it.
Speaking of systems working together in an interesting way, one thing that is easy to forget about with Half-Life that we haven't talked about is, man, the guns feel good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really complicated system to talk about. But
Yeah,
man,
this game has a really good click feel.
like the gun, the guns just feel really, really satisfying, and like you're actually like hurting the enemies. And I feel like, particularly with like non-human enemies, it's easy to screw that up.
Yeah, it's really easy to screw that up because with non-human enemies, you have to invent a whole way of not telegraphing, but communicating that they've been hit physically, and I think it's really easy to mess that up. So many games with non-human enemies fuck that up.
Yeah.
Phil, what are the names of the lightning dudes? Vorgonauts?
Vortigons.
Vortigons.
Vortigons. Something like
Vonnegats.
that. I don't know how you pronounce it, but
Vonnegats.
Vonnegats. We've decided.
Yep.
I think it's my bedtime, y'all.
I'm gonna miss you.
All right, Jordan.
I love you.
I love you too.
I'll let you. I'll tweet you once little Gordon Kohler, aka Jordan Kohler, is born. I'll let you know.
It's a soft G.
It's a soft G. Well, it's like GIF. Who knows? I know Phil says he has the answer, but pop culture decides really. That's all I got.
I am pop culture.
okay.
No, like that's my nickname. Now that I'm a father,
Phil Pop Culture
call
Kohler.
me pop culture. Like pop is in dad.
Right.
It's a really complicated joke. I'll explain it later.
Phil,
But
have
maybe
you bought,
when I'm older.
Phil, have you bought a clip to go on your belt to hold your cell phone?
Jesus Christ, no.
But well, you have to.
No.
As soon as your son is born, because all dads have those. All dads do. It's a dad clip. You have to get a dad clip.
It's true.
It's
What about a
like
money-
legally,
what about
yes, legally I'm required to. but I'm a rebel, and the law cannot tell me what to do.
Ugh, what is that thing?
It's a slime shooty thingy.
Right.
Gross.
It's one of the
That's a
things that did not
scientific
return
term.
with Half-Life 2. I think specifically because the designers for Half-Life 2 looked back at Half-Life 1 and had that same reaction as you. Oh, gross.
And not in a good way.
Anyways,
All right, well, good luck with baby stuff, y'all.
yeah.
Thanks.
Night.
Night, Jordan.
I'm just gonna pour myself a cup of coffee here.
Thought you were going to say whiskey and was a little concerned.
I want to be wasted when this child comes into the world.
Woo!
Okay, this is maybe this is a good place to call it, because this is like... This is the first part in early Half-Life that I always get stuck at, because I'm like, I can't quite remember. This is a weird, confusing, like, meat locker map,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't quite remember how to get through it.
Guys, meat lockers in video games.
Right?
Tumblr.com. Yeah.
It's a really big meat locker.
Video
Yeah,
games
you
have
wouldn't think
those.
that...
It's a really big meat locker, but the hooks are really spaced out.
You wouldn't think that a science facility would have need for this much meat.
People
Well,
gotta
we
eat,
gotta-
man.
Maybe this is like the... whatever that steak sauce company is.
A1.
Yeah, I was gonna say VH1.
VH1.
Yeah, it's the VH1
Late,
for the
I don't
finger
know.
steaks.
I wish that's what it was.
Me too. Can we just pretend it is?
Yes. In our America, in our lore, in the Phil Kohler and Friends wiki,
Vicky, someone quickly add this.
VH1 shall be known as that steak sauce company.
The steak sauce company. I mean, I want to be clear. There's still also VH1.
Yeah. Steak sauce company slash music television for people over the age of
Adult
40.
contemporary. Is that like... 'cause VH1 has to update, right? Like, VH1 now doesn't play what VH1 played 10 years ago, right?
So VH1 now I don't think does much music. I think they do a lot of reality TV.
Oh,
And they do a lot
right.
of nostalgia stuff that's
Yeah.
still for like people like like the I love the 80s and that stuff. Like it's very
Right.
nostalgia
But it's
heavy.
not-
Like they're instead of playing new music, they're saying like, remember how good music was back then?
But back
the
then, at
90s.
this point, right? But back then, now it's for Gen Xers. It's not for
Yeah.
Boomers, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think they do. They have I love the 90s now, right?
Fuck,
Yeah.
dude.
Or they have at some point had it. I don't know that it's still on the air. I guess.
They must. I
Us.
got super depressed because Jen Frank, I think it was her, retweeted someone talking about crushed velvet dresses, and I just
Mhm.
felt so bad inside.
No one blames you for what you did.
I
Janine,
wore a lot
okay?
of bell-sleeved velvet, like peasant tops with corset lacing,
Listen,
lace trim, because I guess I thought I was a bar wench or something when I was in 8th grade.
oh, just let's be clear. You were a bar wench when you were in 8th grade.
Oh, God.
I mean, 8th grade for you was spent serving alcohol in a bar.
Right.
It's
and
true.
that bar was the medieval times. So
Right.
that was like being a wench.
Exactly. I was educated by traveling bards.
right.
It's why I'm so spirited now.
I thought you were I seriously, when you launched into that story, I thought you were gonna say, I got really depressed one time and watched a whole bunch of VH1, just like splurged on it, and then you were gonna tell us what's on VH1, because that's the kind of thing I do. Like, I guess
Mhm.
I don't. This is one of the reasons I don't have cable TV, because I would
Yep.
do this all the time. But like when I was like living back at my mom's house for a while, and she had cable TV, like I would just. There would be days, like, I'll say days even though I mean weeks. There would be times where I would get super depressed and just, like, watch TV nonstop for, like, as long as I could possibly take it. And not, like, good, just, like, the shittiest, like,
Yep.
crime TV and reality TV and, like, whatever
You know
I could
how,
watch that was just bad.
You know how Janine and I often talk about that summer we played all of Star Trek Online?
Yeah.
That was also the summer we watched a lot of Mansers and Thousand Ways to
Mansers?
Die.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, was
Um,
that, like, you were both just, like, mutual depression there?
Dude, it was rough. Okay.
Let's get into this. Let's really talk about.
That was the. We were playing Star Trek Online when I was in Teachers College, so that was stressful. And then I immediately graduated from Teachers College and could not find a job at all. Nowhere. Right. No one would even call me back.
And for me, it was the year that I could no longer afford to live in New York City and had to move back in with my mom. Perfect. And
yep.
I'd applied to grad school and hadn't heard back yet.
Oh, guys.
And even if I'd gotten in, what was I really going to do?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So, and there was also, Phil, that was also that was the year that you reached out to me about a potential internship. So I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Am I really going to go do that? Years and years ago now, when you were still back at GI. And like, you know, it was just one of those situations where it was like, I don't know what direction my life is going in. Let's watch the dumbest shit and shoot phasers.
Listen, that was a mistake on my part, reaching out to you.
Right. I know.
I'm really glad that didn't work out, because I probably would have been fired.
That's true. I would have taken that job.
There we go.
Cockbox says he knows what we're talking about. I'm in that position now.
I'm
just
still
the thing
in that position. It's kind of a bummer.
The thing to remember, the thing that I will say about that is that happens. Just don't keep in mind that inevitably, as long as you keep your head up, things will improve.
Well, like, that's one side of it, and then the other side of it.
Wait, hold on. Are you about to say the other side of it is no? They won't really improve.
Right, which is Janine just said that she was still sort of in that position, and I'm in the position which is like, oh, I got into grad school and things turned out okay. I'm like, on paper, I should be fucking thrilled right now. But also, guys, I would totally be down for watching a Mancers marathon right now. Like, that's where I'm still at, despite the fact that things have improved. So, really, what I'm saying is, like, don't bet all your money on one horse. Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. We should watch Mancers,
is what we're really getting to. Like,
that's really what I'm saying.
Let's stream us watching that.
That would be the best.
It's a terrible show. It's the terrible best show.
So,
it is the best show.
Giop does this thing. I don't know if he wants me talking about this on air, but I'm gonna. Giop does this thing where he fuck, I probably shouldn't be talking about this on there. He streams movies on Twitch.
Oh, okay, I know people who do that.
Like, password protects it, so that his friends can all hang out and watch the movies and, like, comment on them together. Mm-hmm. I would totally love to do that sometime.
Yeah, me too. I'd be down.
That's adorable.
People I know from IRC do that, because I still have IRC
Second Life do that. Except they do it into virtual living rooms, and then they all sit together and eat pretend popcorn.
Second Life, y'all.
Second Life.
No, guys, for real though, just keep your head up. Things improve, and sometimes it takes a while, and sometimes life is ups and downs. You're always going to go through times where you're like, I'm not feeling the best about the direction of my life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, I'm not the one to be giving advice.
Like,
what am I doing?
But that's like, the thing is, like, that's a really important feeling to have, right? Like, the feeling okay, so my dad's a hard-working small businessman who has had shitty luck in small business.
Heart of Gold says, I thought everyone was saying Mancers, Mancers, and thought it was a show about magic and shit.
That would be the best!
I wish!
Jesus Christ!
That'd be amazing.
Oh, that would be the best.
Oh,
so my dad's like this really... He tries really hard, and really wants to be a successful small businessman. But for a while, he has had to take on second jobs, and right now he's selling insurance, and is really successful at that. But a couple years ago, he used to work for Coca-Cola, selling like Coke to businesses. Like, he'd be the guy who goes in and like checks what they need and tries to upsell them on more Coke for their convenience stores or restaurants, and trying to upsell them on more Coke for their fridge or their fountain or whatever.
Sure.
And he hated it, and recognized that he hated it, recognized that he was at a shitty place, and like did his best to change that scenario. Meanwhile, this dude Pat, I know, who used to still does come into the comic book and tabletop gaming store I used to work at, had the same exact job, and hated it, but like didn't really recognize that was the thing that he hated in his life. Didn't really recognize that his life was in a shitty place, and it just kind of like is bitter and doesn't know why he's bitter. And so like if you're saying, "Oh, my life is in a shitty place right now. I wish A, B, and C could change," then like lean into that. Like really recognize that and try to change it. It's not going to change by itself. And I think you're better off recognizing that you're in a shitty place than just kind of being like shrugging and to be like, guys, this is the way life is, I guess. So.